Throughout our 40 plus week journey, there have only been a very few, if I'm being honest, I think maybe only one other one is coming to mind right now, stories of women in scripture that I legitimately have until today, until I prepared for today, no awareness of, no exposure to, had just never even heard of them. And after reading today's text from Ezekiel, I think I get it. I think too many are too either overwhelmed or intimidated or nervous or maybe some combination thereof to really talk about these women. But again, just like last week with Ezekiel, what we have are women who are really just metaphor, personifications. The problem is that these personified cities given names, female names, are also then treated as women. And the personification is taken so literally in some cases that this is where sexual ethic within Christian circles, particularly purity circles, is born. And it's so dangerous. It's just bad. And it's a very uncomfortable passage of scripture because you can't justify it. You can't just say, well, this is how it was. Right? That's the problem. That's how it was is the problem. How it was is the issue. And so the deeper issue that I think most resonates with our text, or with our purpose rather, is this. Does God use this language of whore and sex work and all of that, sexual infidelity, sexual immorality, sexual promiscuity, appetite for just a lot of sexual encounter that is depicted negatively from the perspective of a female desiring all of those things. What do we do with the fact that God is delivering a message to the people of Israel that their spiritual infidelity, their infidelity of God, their lust after other gods, their lust after other nations and the worship and the gods that they adhere to, what do we do with the fact that this is the way that God asked Ezekiel to speak to the people about their actions? Some might argue that God used the women of, I have to look because I keep forgetting, Ohola and Oholibah to resonate so that the women of the culture would understand the implications of betraying God, of being adulterous in their worship. But that leads to this bigger issue, though, right? That you're minimizing women to either that it's been pushed to and used, I think, in this text in a really uncomfortable way, of women who have any sexual identity, sexual appetite, desire for any kind of sexuality are painted as bad. And then in this passage, traumatized, raped, taken advantage of, all of that is there. Or the flip side, right? So what's the flip side? Well, what God is trying to say to the people is, focus on me. Be faithful to me. Worship me and me alone. That's the message. Using the imagery that Ezekiel uses, however, has been, and quite frankly continues to be in many circles that call themselves Christian, the implication being just don't, right? So it's like complete purity, good. The opposite, bad. No room for anything in between. And this is how we get to this purity culture that has caused so much harm and trauma and shame, and for women. And the flip side is the freedom that it has given men throughout the years. That their appetites, their desires, their lusts are fine and are the cause of the women, right? That it's all the women's fault. This is a really hard text. It just is. So what I need you to remember is that Ohola and Oholibah are personifications of Israel and Samaria. These are very tragic, unfortunate, disappointing images used to convey that from the very beginning, all the way back to the time they were freed from Egypt, the Israelites have been unfaithful to God in this very circular pattern, cyclical pattern. That's the message. It's what has been done to it. And it is. We do have to wrestle with the fact that of all of the images God could have chosen, that's the one God chose. Because the literal meaning, right? Women in this time would know that adultery meant death. That's what they knew. You can't wrestle your way around it or through it. You just have to wrestle with it. These are things when we get into particularly the Old Testament, but for sure parts of the New Testament as well, that we have to wrestle with in our faith and try and reconcile understanding, as we've talked about in these over 40 weeks, how God values and loves and gives purpose to all created beings, women included, regardless of how religion has tainted that. How do we reconcile all that we've learned to this point with this imagery for the prophecy? It does beg the question, is this the image God gave Ezekiel? Or did God say, you need to get these people to wake up and understand that their adultery from me is leading to their death? Physical, spiritual, however you want to look at it. And it's the image Ezekiel chose. We don't know. What's interesting is that this text then is paired with that of Mary and Martha. Two women, right? Ohola and Oholibah are kind of, they're not pitted against one another, they're just compared. They're both bad, but one is worse. Then we have Mary and Martha, who, depending on which passage, which piece of their story you're talking about, one is usually shown in a bit worse light than the other. Today's story is not that of Lazarus' death, but the sisters do respond differently to Jesus's late arrival to that situation. And in this one, we have this very, like every Christian women's retreat in the 90s talked about this, right? Probably every single one. Being a Mary or being a Martha. Isn't that a book? I think that's a book. Don't be a Martha in a Mary world or a Mary in a Martha world, whatever. Doesn't matter. The point is, we have one woman sitting at the feet of Jesus, meaning not in a deferential way, but in a teacher-student way. She is a disciple. She is learning. She is wanting all that he is able to teach her. And she is sitting there with the other disciples, right? And then we have another sister, Martha, who has taken her duties as hostess very seriously and has come to Jesus and said, I need her to be helping me. She's sitting here being lazy. Now, there are a lot of interpretations of this passage. I will let you go look all of those up if you want to, but here's an interesting lens. If you use our lens, if you use the purpose of this series, to look at the difference between how God views women and what religion has done and twisted to get us to where we are today. Some people will say Jesus is yelling at Martha. Some people will say he's very dismissive to her. Some people will say he's just patronizing Mary, sitting at his feet. But what about the possibility that Jesus is simply saying, Martha, release these duties that have been put upon you by society and come and be my disciple. You don't have to do all of that first. You don't have to make the house look perfect. You don't have to serve a perfect meal. You don't have to get the kitchen cleaned. You don't have to do any of that in order to sit at my feet and be my child and be my disciple. Come learn from me. The rest of it, it'll be there later. I don't care what your house looks like. You've let me in. Now come learn from me. What if that is the interpretation? What if that is what Jesus was doing? What if that was Jesus's tone? Instead of deriding, instead of punishing, instead of judging, what if Jesus was simply saying, Martha, let it go. Just let it go. I know this is what society has taught you. I know this is what you are expected within our culture to do. But just let it go. Come and learn from me. I know I'm in your home. I do not need your home to be perfect. Just come learn. Why not? Why not? Why can't that be what it's about? There's just so much. There's just so much right now. Where do we even begin? We jump in where we are, right? We have to avoid the analysis paralysis and try our best to just act, to learn, to resist, to fight, to act. And this is one of the ways that we can do that. Push back. Question other possibilities. Allow yourself to be open that there might be another explanation. And let yourself receive that message from Jesus that you are welcome to learn at his feet, no matter who you are, no matter where you are from, no matter what you have done, no matter what you are doing. Let it go. Sit at his feet. Learn, and then do. We'll see what these next few weeks bring. So we have next week, which includes Transfiguration Sunday, and then so that there will be 3, maybe 4 women that we'll talk about, or sets of women that we'll talk about next week, and then we get into Lent. And my goal is to put something out for Ash Wednesday, so we'll see. And that will be the final turn into our final quarter of these services. So I'm already thinking ahead. I'm looking ahead to what's next. If you have ideas, drop them in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Know that sharing doesn't have to be over social media, right? You can email this. You can text the link. Lots of ways to get it out there. If it's a message that you feel others need, I encourage you to do so. Thanks for showing up week after week. I will see you next time. Be well.